Here are your headlines for the day. A Louisiana State Police trooper has been suspended without pay for kicking and dragging a handcuffed black man whose in-custody death remains unexplained and also the subject of a federal civil rights investigation. Ronald Greene was a 49-year-old barber. He died in police custody on May 10th, 2019, following a violent arrest and high-speed pursuit. The Associated Press has internal state police records, which state body camera footage showed Master Trooper Corey York dragging Ronald Greene on his stomach by the leg shackles. The footage was only released to the family and their lawyer and has not been made publicly available. His family watched body camera footage of Greene's arrest earlier last week, saying it contradicts initial police statements, which said Greene died in a car crash following the chase. Louisiana police state troopers initially blamed the injuries that led to Greene's death on a car crash that occurred at the end of a police chase in Monroe. But the body camera footage and an audio clip of the altercation previously released to the Associated Press has raised questions among Greene's family, who filed a federal wrongful death lawsuit. Lee Merritt is the family's attorney, one of them, and he told the AP this family has been lied to the entire time about what happened. The video was very difficult to watch. It's one of those videos like George Floyd and even Ahmaud Arbery where it is just so graphic. Obviously, again, that video has not been released to the public. But let's talk about that audio because we mentioned it in the story. Me and Romeo have kind of been talking about it, too. Last year, the Associated Press, released essentially a transcript of the audio chatter that was picked up on a body camera mic. They actually got a hold to 27 seconds of audio from a body camera mic. And one of the things was an officer being heard saying, "I beat the ever-living F word out of him." I mean,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, he was spitting blood everywhere, and all of a sudden, he just went limp.
Yeah.
So, we wonder why they hold on to the body cam footage for so long. I feel like when they do that, there's already guilt. They're trying to cover up a story, but those are the most important 27 seconds of that audio, if you ask me, right?
Well, Troy, the trooper is, he was recorded as saying, "You're going to lay on your blank, blank, blank belly like I told you." He's been suspended without pay, and also following an internal investigation, it led to the termination of another trooper who, strangely enough, died in a single car crash after learning he'd been fired for his role in the incident. So you're right, Romeo and Brooke. This is an ongoing situation where the public is now just starting to become aware of the reality of the situation, which it seems like the cops have lied yet again.
Absolutely. Brooke, I'm glad you brought up the audio because that was something that was very interesting to me, that 27 seconds of the audio, and hopefully we can, talk about that a little bit more. But Melissa, even to your point, that car crash was very intriguing for me as well, that the timing of it was just kind of like, I don't know, I'm always on my conspiracy theory tip. But also, York, he was guilty before this whole thing happened. He said that he told investigators that he took off his body camera because it was beeping really loudly, and his mind was on other things even before arriving at the scene. So he was guilty before this even happened. And I, honestly, something about him being called Master Trooper, I don't know how I feel about
that was
either.
disturbing, right?
They got to change that too.
Yeah. So the whole thing is just bad. It's all bad.
And the one that was suspended was only suspended for 50 hours without pay.
50 hours.
50 hours.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
All right. Well, commissioners in the city where black teenager Trayvon Martin was killed by a neighborhood watch volunteer 9 years ago Friday have agreed to form an advisory committee to study how race, class, and gender can lead to social inequities. The 15-member Race, Equality, Equity, and Inclusion group will be made up of residents, people who work in Sanford, and business owners, the Orlando Sentinel is reporting. The committee will be charged with taking a look at racial tension within the city and how the disparities in services, public and private, impact people of color more than they do their white counterparts, Andrew Thomas, Sanford's Community Relations and Neighborhood Engagement Director, said during a recent commission meeting. The 125-year-old city has a history of racial tensions, with weeks of protests erupting following Martin's death. About one-third of Sanford's 60,000 residents are black. Today, 2 of the city's commissioners, the police chief and city manager, are black. So what's interesting about this story was that this originated they were going to start a mural. They were going to create a mural, and it grew in concept to the racial equity panel shortly after the death of George Floyd. So when I think about this story, the first thing that I question is how many of these panelists within the commission are going to be people of color, because we've seen diversity panels, organized after a company has had, a public quote unquote misstep in judgment, H&M with the monkeys, hoodie, et cetera, et cetera. But then when you look at the people who are in charge of the commission or the panel designated to investigate, diversity issues, they're all white. And it's like,
doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up whatsoever. So I'm really interested to find out, how many of the panelists are people of color, speaking up for their own communities.
Yeah, and you got to think about this city has had issues for the last decade. First of all, their first black police chief was in 2013, and the city was not happy about that, right? So if we're talking about changes in the city, and over the years, they had problem with the police department where one police officer recovering cars with late payments in exchange for he wouldn't have to make payments for cars, right? And then there was text messages and like racial slurs sent out from computers at the police station. So there's a lot of work to be done in this city.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I like this because any progress is progress, right? And as long as this is not the only thing being done, this is a good thing. But, the truth is, if we're honest, it doesn't take a panel. It doesn't take a study. It doesn't take anything extra to just simply stop treating black children as suspicious. A black kid, no matter what he's wearing, walking through a neighborhood is not suspicious. And I don't know if you all have heard of the Nextdoor app. I'm sure you've heard of it. If you've ever looked at it, it's some of the comments. Actually see some of the comments in everybody's neighborhood are out of pocket. Yeah. Exactly. And so it doesn't take a study to start slamming that stuff is exactly what it is.
That's true.
I
know some people wouldn't get hired based on what they put on the Nextdoor app.
Hello.
Seriously.
I like that. Some progress is progress, Brooke. Now, moving right along. So an Oklahoma City officer has been charged with first-degree manslaughter in the December shooting death of a homeless black man. The shooting happened last year on December 11th in the 2100 block of West Hefner Road in Oklahoma City. Benny Edwards, a 60-year-old homeless man, died after Sergeant Clifford Holman, who was 36, shot him in the back multiple times as he ran away. The Oklahoma County District Attorney's Office notified the police department that Holman would be charged on February 24th. Dash camera and body camera footage of the shooting was released by prosecutors on Friday. Footage of the shooting taken by a witness was shared to social media, and the incident sparked days of protests and calls for Police Chief Wade Gorley to be fired and Mayor David Holt to resign. Honestly, another video that is hard for me to watch. He was a homeless man. He already was homeless. Of course he didn't deserve to die, and he definitely didn't deserve to die that way. But his family, so he had another run-in with a police officer, I believe it was a postal worker, some years ago. And so he actually also struggled with schizophrenia as well as bipolar disorder. And so, stories like this really make me think, why are we not doing more for mental health? Because he had a run-in once before. He had bipolar and schizophrenia. So, if you know anyone with either of those disorders, they make you already have anxiety and raised fear in situations that might not have been a fearful situation. So you're thinking this person is, it's more dangerous than it really is, And so I just feel like we should be doing way more for people that suffer with mental health. Like his family, they knew that he had these two disorders. How come there wasn't more done to make sure he was in a better living situation?
Well, the reality of the situation is that, the cops don't have any kind of crisis intervention certification. That's the reality of the situation, is that they came up upon a problem that they didn't have the tools to solve what the issue was. I mean, the first officer on scene, I watched the whole video, he calls for backup with a taser. And I thought that should be the end of it, but it wasn't. And the fact that this gentleman was shot in the back just basically shows that he really wasn't the threat that the officers are trying to, insinuate that he was to them.
Yeah, I agree. And you think about the OKC Police Department saying they're standing by their officers because they were exposed to danger. Isn't that part of your job? Yeah. You know that when you come onto the force. And after you see that video, you've seen several police cars over there. Here's a homeless man with a bike. How far away is he going to get that you have to resort to a gun. I mean, it's just over and over again we see these stories, and like it's just disheartening, man, in so many ways. It really is.
Absolutely. And I want to just go to Demi's point. You know, like she said, you know, this man was already unhoused. This man was already living a life where he didn't have a safe place to lay his head at night. That's already tragic enough. That's already enough. And can we go back to that video, just if it's possible, if we can go back to that video, because just once again, in this video, the second part of the video, you know, you see the response and the number of police vehicles, and defund the police advocates simply say, hey, imagine a world where this is not the response to someone like this, where there's a different response when someone like this is a part of an emergency.
I would love that, Brooke.
You know?
Honestly, I would love that. I would love for there to be a middleman in between. So it's kind of like maybe we don't need the police officers. He's already homeless. He has a mental health, mental health issues going on. Maybe that whatever that middleman person is to dissolve the situation, you know, versus it ending the way that it did.
Professionally trained crisis intervention officers.
That'll do it.
Yeah,
That's what we need.
That's true. All right, the city of Berkeley, California is implementing a series of sweeping police reforms in an effort to tackle racism in the criminal justice system. Recently, the city council voted to end police traffic stops for low-level offenses, such as not wearing a seatbelt or having expired license. Police will also need written consent for vehicle searches, except under circumstances where consent is not legally required. And cops can no longer conduct warrantless searches of people on parole or probation. The city council also voted to fire officers found to have published racist content online, according to HuffPost Black. The reforms follow protests against racist police violence across California and the country last summer. A report from the Center of Policing Equity in 2018 found that black people were over 6 times more likely than whites to be stopped by Berkeley police while driving. Latinx drivers were twice as likely as whites to be stopped. Black drivers was also searched by police 4 times more often than whites, and Latinx drivers 3 times more often. The mayor expressed hope that limiting unnecessary police stops would allow law enforcement to focus its resources on more urgent matters such as violent crime. So I checked into some numbers. There's like over 32 million traffic stops a year. And I do understand what they're trying to do here. Not sure if I'm totally comfortable with that, because sometimes just a basic traffic stop could save someone's life, whether it be a kidnapping, whether it be some, you know, there could be something else on this guy's record. So I'm kind of torn on how I feel about this. What are you guys' thoughts about this?
Well, the other side, go for it, Demi.
Oh, I wanted to just say, you know, really quickly, I like the idea of less intrusive policing, you know, but seatbelts save lives. So I'm with you, Romeo, that I'm like, I get where we're going. You know, I am okay with you riding dirty for a little bit and you need to get your license situation together, because
tell
I have
him,
been,
Demi.
listen, I have been unemployed, okay, and I have not had the money to get my driver's license and things in order. I get it. I have been there. So I'm understanding of that, okay? Like, I'm totally fine with that. But, you know, seatbelts save lives, like I said. So I don't know how I feel about us, you know, being able to just ride free without a seatbelt. Like, I don't know how I feel about that
But
part.
then on the flip side, we look at situations like Sandra Bland and we look at Philando Castillo. You know, a lot of times a routine traffic stop results in a really, really violent, if not fatal, altercation between cops and black people. So this really is a double-sided kind of coin. Like,
this is
defunding
the police. This is part of that action. And I hear what you're saying, Romeo. You know, traffic stops save lives. They also, to Melissa's point, ridiculously end in a loss of life. And also to Demi's point, you know, seatbelts save lives, but seatbelts save the life of the person wearing them. So if a grown adult doesn't want to protect themselves, should we continue with a system that unfairly kills people in some instances to make a grown person protect themselves? In what other instance where it doesn't affect other people do we force people to protect themselves? I mean, again, there are many little small instances. We've got lots of rules and regulations. But this is a pretty simple thing where it's like, hey, you're an adult. Do what you please.
Yeah, but rolling through stop signs in neighborhoods, like there's so many kids. Like I was reading into it, and I was trying to go with it, but at the end of the day, we're getting stopped for being black the majority of the time, and that's what leads to
because how many times do people say, I didn't roll through a stop sign?
Yeah.
you know?
true.
Yeah. I feel you, Romeo. I'm the same way too. I'm just kind of like, I feel like you have those people, you give them an inch and they take a mile. Then you look up and it's kind of like,
Those people are the police.
no, well, I feel like I feel like people, like if I have the opportunity to ride around without my seatbelt, you know, no one's gonna stop me. And it's kind of just like, then you have someone who, you know, you hit a person, but it's kind of like, then they say, well, we gave you guys, this is what the black community wanted. You guys wanted us to not stop you guys for riding around with seatbelts, and then you have all these people that end up, you know, innocent pedestrians. So that's what I'm saying.
You know what, because I do think Debbie makes a quick point. I just want to say, you know, because when we start talking about a world where there's less police, oftentimes it comes from this perspective that we've never seen that before. But you guys, that exists in predominantly white, wealthy neighborhoods all the time. Only black neighborhoods are treated as if like these people need to be caged like animals and constantly being looked after. In 2021, there are currently neighborhoods that already don't receive this type of heavy policing. There are already communities all across our country that today already for decades have already been treated as if, hey, they'll handle small things.
Interesting.
That
really
already
good.
exists.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I love that, Brooke. That really just gave me a little extra food for thought. Thanks for adding that little piece in there. Okay, so let's check in really quickly with our YouTube soulmates. Therese says, sounds ridiculous and tragic. One of our soulmates, Dina Johnson, she says, mental health illness is being highlighted all around the world. Why not do something about it? I feel you, girl. I'm with you. RJ says, they need to get people who are experienced with mental health issues to assist the police at the scene. That's kind of what Melissa was saying there. Speaking of Melissa, So Be It One says, speak on it, Melissa. All right. I love it. Keep the comments coming. The chat is lit. I like that. I like saying the chat is lit. The chat is lit today, okay? In the meantime, Romeo, let our soulmates know what's coming up after the break.